I hope you had a great generic meal name goes here. We had a great generic meal name goes here. We are talking about SignalR. Mm-hmm. We had a great morning. We had a lot of fun with all our friends around the world, checking in with us from everywhere. This is so fun.
Still no Greenland.
We really appreciate you people staying up very late at night. You do have our permission to go to sleep if you need to. This is all being recorded. The demo code's all going to be available, the slides, everything. Mm-hmm. But we really appreciate it. So we talked first all about SignalR fundamentals, what SignalR is. Then we talked about SignalR on the web and looked at using SignalR in web clients, web applications. Then we talked about SignalR on the client, everything outside of the browser. We showed examples like Visual Studio and Office.com. We showed, Windows Store, Windows Phone, Android, iOS, Connect. So hopefully give you an idea that really pretty much anywhere you can run .NET code, you can run SignalR. Yep. And we encourage you to do so pretty much everywhere.
Exactly.
So now in this session, we're going to go kind of to the next level, a little bit more advanced, and we're going to talk about, what do you do when your SignalR service needs to scale? What do you do when it gets big? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to lie, Brady is the expert here. I'm going to sit here and make jokes, and Brady is going to teach us all. So on to Brady.
I'll try. John is being far too kind. I'm definitely not the expert when it comes to scaling out SignalR. The expert will be here a little bit later on, Damian Edwards. I have done quite a bit with it, tinkering, helping some of our customers get it dialed in. Actually, a guy that you know as well, Scott Kate, actually used some SignalR with I think he used the service bus backplane, I think with Event Day, one of his Event Day things that he did. So we had like a chat kind of right there in the event homepage, and we could chat back and forth. That was pretty cool. Wow. So I helped him kind of get the service bus part dialed in there. That was kind of challenging. During that conversation, I actually kind of went back and forth to Damian and had some questions for him and whatnot. But I have learned how to do scale out. I do want to tell you, I'm going to try to do 2 demos of scale out today. There's a third one that I just didn't get to, and that's for using Service Bus. Once you see how to do it with SQL and you see how to do it with Redis, you'll probably know how to do it with Service Bus. It's pretty much one line of code. It's configuration through an extension method. Before we get into that, one of the things I love to do when I give these SignalR talks is to check my Twitter during the talk, because pretty much every day somebody out there in webland comes up with a great SignalR demo. And I was sitting here looking at my Twitter while we were on our break, and I see a nice little Twitter message that says, enjoying lighting up the thing, and then right underneath it, it's basically enjoying lighting up SignalR and the MVA talk that we're doing. And then right below that, I see cool stuff. Here's how you use D3.js and ASP.NET SignalR for real-time data visualization. So I click on the link. We can see what's on my monitor here. And I'm over here at .NET Curry. And if I you'll see the name right here, Ravi Karan. What's really interesting about that, he's the guy that did the Angular SignalR blog post that we linked you over to earlier. So you can tell he's just as much, if not almost as big a SignalR cheerleader as I am.
I believe he was on the chat earlier too. He might have been.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, such a bummer. Well, if you scroll down in his post here, if I scroll way down in his post here, you'll see that he has this fantastic demo of using SignalR to build a real-time chart. I've got a couple of samples that I've done this in. I haven't done it for stock ticker, but that's a great place to do it. You could select the stock and kind of see what the stock is doing. And he's actually got the code for it all up in GitHub. So you could actually grab his code and figure out how to do this. Now, I haven't done this using D3. I'd like to try that. I did it using a different charting technology.
Maybe Flot?
No, it was a different one, Simple Charts or something. It's a cool charting one, but I've done it with a different charting thing. Let's put it that way. I actually might have to take a look at Ravi's post, because some of the stuff that I've seen him do has been pretty inspirational, like the Angular JS post. But that's a cool demo. Highly recommend you take a peek out there at it on .NET Curry. But what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about lighting up SignalR in a web farm environment. So if you have multiple instances like I do of various sites running up in Azure, in Azure it's pretty easy. You just slide the slider out and now you've got 10 instances of your site running instead of just one. Now, there's kind of a dark side to SignalR, just like there is with every other technology. Even though technology is awesome as SignalR, has a dark side. So we're going to talk about that real quick. I want to flip over to this slide real quick, and this is kind of our big message. Hopefully you guys know the obscure movie reference here. I'm referring to the movie Gremlins from when I was a child. Even adorable, furry little pets have a dark side when you feed them after midnight, or more importantly, break very important rules. So there are some of those very important rules with SignalR, and I want to kind of point out what two of those are right now. Rule number one is extremely important. SignalR is not MSMQ, is not storage queues, is not service bus queues. SignalR is not durable messaging. Even when you put in a backplane, you've got some sort of a data persistence mechanism behind all of your web server instances. It's still not durable messaging. You would not want to use SignalR for something important like taking the credit card data, because you're going to drop a few messages, maybe 2 out of 1,000. But you need to think about that when you're doing SignalR. SignalR is for that UI sugar. Sometimes people will put architecture in places to kind of handle whenever a message gets dropped and then pump it back through. If you want to do that, that's good. If you get to that in your architectural paradigm, I would advise that you probably need to think about how you injected SignalR into your architecture. So it's not durable. So.
Right. We talked about this yesterday, and we had a great discussion. And what Brady's saying, I like to think if you're like a nerd in that you know about the difference between TCP and UDP.
Or you've won The Price is Right. Yeah, or that.
But that would be an example. TCP, you get acknowledgement. You send a message, you understand. If you don't get an ACK, you resend. There's all that. UDP is like, here's a packet. I don't care if you got it. Hopefully somebody got this packet, right? And SignalR, you need to think of it. Now, I don't think we've seen today like a missed message, but it happens.
It does happen.
So there are patterns, as Brady was saying. You could say, for instance, you want to have your client send something that you really want to make sure gets to the server. Maybe you have a traditional web service call, and call in web API, and then you pump that message out to all your connected clients using SignalR. But it is important. You can build in durability at other layers, but SignalR is not where that is.
Yes, SignalR all by itself is not. It's not like a queuing technology. It's just a real-time messaging technology. There's kind of a different way of thinking about it. So I do want to kind of caution you. When I first saw SignalR, I think I said something along the lines of, "Wow, I never have to do REST again." Don't do that. Okay, that's a bad way to go. Okay, the SignalR is a great hammer, makes everything look like a nail. I got to throw in the Spider-Man rule here. With great power comes great responsibility. So just be careful how you use SignalR. Watch out for that durable messaging bit. Damien might have some tricks of the trade on how to make it durable messaging, or how you can inject pieces of your architecture to kind of, handle those messages. But just be careful there. The other thing that you need to know about SignalR is that SignalR hubs and connections are server bound. What that means is if I create a hub on my instance 1, and I make a call to it, and then another client hits my web server, and they might hit server 2, and they start communicating, they're only going to be seeing the messages that they're sending back and forth to the server, because there's not something that's going to take those messages and send them from one server to the other server. So you're just going to have not lost messages, but the clients connected to the other server won't actually see those messages. The good thing is the SignalR team has built a pretty awesome way for you to work around this called a backplane. And I want to show you how backplanes work today. So here's kind of our section slide. Right now we're going to talk about SignalR backplanes, and the idea behind those is you want to deploy your web application out to a web farm. You want to host it on 2, 10, 32 web server instances, and you want to make sure that your messages go all the way through, so to all your users and all your servers. So Here's kind of how it works, all right? So you've got all your multiple clients over here on the left, and I've got a web application that I've deployed across 3 instances. Okay, so the first client is going to make a request to the first server, second client's going to make a request to the second server, third client's going to make a request to the third server. Let's say it's a round robin failover or something along those lines. The important thing to note here is that the first client's messages aren't going to the second client's messages aren't going to the first client, et cetera, et cetera. So as long as these clients don't hit the same server, which is completely non-deterministic, which means Murphy's Law dictates it's going to happen, those messages are not going to get back to those other clients, and you're going to lose all the happiness of doing multi-client real-time in SignalR. So how do you solve this problem? Let me go back to my deck real quick. Now what you do is you literally drop in a backplane. And what we've done is we've got 3 different backplanes that you can choose from today. You can also code your own up, and a story on that in a moment. The first one up here at the top, that is the service bus backplane. The one down below it is the SQL backplane. And then the one down below that is the Redis backplane. The first version of this Redis backplane, remember a little while ago I talked about how I interviewed David and Damien on Channel 9. I was about 10 minutes late because I was coming from another meeting, and when I walked in, David just threw his arms down and he said, "Hey, I just implemented the Redis backplane." And I said, "Well, I was only 10 minutes late." And he goes, "I know, it took me 10 minutes." So that was the first version of the Redis backplane he implemented while Brady was late for a show, so it was kind of funny. So what happens if you drop in this backplane? If you drop in the backplane, what's going to end up happening is these client messages are going to hit the server, then they're going to be sent back to the backplane, then the backplane is going to turn around and it's going to send those messages back through all of your other instances, which are going to get back onto your clients. So this slide kind of shows off what that looks like. The message is just going through and going all the way back. So I do want to point out that if you want to have a multi-instance situation with a web farm, you definitely want to drop in a backplane, or you're going to have problems with those messages getting to all the different clients. All right. Now, getting started real quickly, we're going to get started very briefly with a scaling up a website using a SignalR hub using the SQL backplane. Okay. Now, ironically, I do not have a SQL server installed locally, so I'm actually going to set one up out there in Azure. See if I can do it right here. So I'm going to do a SQL database. I'm going to go ahead and create this guy, and we'll just call it scaling SignalR. Leave that the way it is. It's all well and good. I don't want to put it anywhere in particular. I'll just say I'll put this in, I don't know where I want to put it. I'll say I'll put it in a new server. So I'll do, I can find a new server. No, I don't want to do it that way. Configure, let's do create. Where's this guy? Create a new server. And I'll just call this SignalR, server. And I'm going to give it a pretty complicated set of creds here. Go ahead and click OK right here. And what this is going to do, I'm going to put this in West US. Go ahead and create our database. That's actually going to go out and create a quick little database and database server for me running up in Azure. And while that's creating, I want to flip back over here to the code. We're going to go through this quick little demo. Now, what I've got is a pretty basic, just another chat app. And GitHub is telling me that, or VS is telling me that I've boned up my my line endings. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to comment out this setup scale out method. Before I get too deep into this, I just want to show you what this hub looks like. It's pretty basic, just a little chat hub. I'm going to send it a message and just call the receive message guy and drop them all out. Now, in this project, I've actually referenced or installed the Microsoft.ASP.NET SignalR.SQL server package, and that is a package that will allow you to do scale out in SQL. Okay, so you can actually do that stuff here. And like I talked about earlier, a lot of the stuff that you want to do from configuration will actually dangle off of the global host object. So I want to do global host.dependency resolver, and what you'll see is that the SignalR team has been very courteous, and they've given us these handy dandy extension methods here, and I'll just do use SQL server, and I'm really just going to pass it a connection string. And the idea behind that is I'm going to pass it that connection string. It's going to dial out to that SQL server, inject all the tables that I'm going to need, and start using that SQL Server database to actually do all the scale out magic for me. But what I want to do is I'm going to show you what's probably going to happen to you out there. The same thing happened to me when I first got started with this. Is you're going to discover that you have deployed to a web farm environment and your stuff isn't going to work. Now, I'm not going to deploy this out to multiple instances in Azure. I'm just going to run these instances locally. So I'm actually going to fire up a local instance of IIS Express 2 times, and I'm going to run one on port 9090, and I'm going to run one on port 9091. Kind of a hokey example that I stole from a good buddy of mine who just walked into the room here. So what I'll do here is I'll open up one browser, and I'll go to localhost :9090 default.html, I believe. Oh, of course that'll happen.
You have to type in HTTP.
I think I do.
I do that 10 times a day.
Okay, so that one's gotten loaded up, and now I'm going to go over here and just change this URL, and I'm going to go to 9091. So I've got 2 instances of my site running the same code, running on different servers, if you will, different ports. And if I send messages back and forth, you're going to see, oh, that one's not even going through for some reason. That's interesting. So that message isn't even going through to itself. Let's see if I've killed the instance. Nope, it's running there. That one's running there, so that's kind of weird. That one's not even firing, but you can see that the server's happening back here. Anyway, I'm not getting messages on this guy from over here. It looks like it's actually not connecting for some reason.
Maybe just restart a new browser and point it at it.
Let me try that.
Oh, but it's the port.
I don't know if it's the port or what. Not sure why that's happening. It's like it can't make the connection back again. Kind of odd. Huh.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Let me restart that server. Is this 9090? Yeah. Restart this one. It's kind of odd because 9091 is indeed working just fine.
Yep. And it's identical.
It's identical, yeah, it's kind of funny. And it's actually exactly the same directory and everything. 9090 just doesn't want to work for some reason. That's a little weird.
I wonder if there's a port issue.
Anyway,
yeah.
What you should see is that the messages obviously will not be going back and forth across these 2 guys. So it's just not gonna end up hitting each individual server. So what I would do in this guy, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to reach out and connect to that SQL. What I'll do now is I'll rebuild this, and now I would actually have to go in and set up my connection string right here inside of this guy, which I don't really want to do on screen. So I'll just, I don't want to skip it, but I'm going to skip it, and I'm going to show you this in Redis. But what would end up happening here, sorry guys, what would end up happening is as soon as I recompile this code and dial it back in and connect to the database, what's going to happen is these guys are going to talk back and forth. But I'm going to do that with the Redis one because I don't want to take my connection string and paste it in here. Plus, I'm just a little concerned about that. So I'm going to flip back over to this one. I don't know why that 9090 isn't working. I want to change the port in the other one. So one question that we get asked quite frequently, and that I've asked my buddy Damien on a few occasions, is how would you choose a SignalR backplane? At one point, I was trying to build one of these myself. It wasn't a good experience. I'm definitely not as sharp as some of the guys on the SignalR team. Okay, I'm not as sharp as any of them. But I tried to build my own backplane provider, and I talked to Damien about it, and he said, that's going to be really, really difficult. This is sort of your decision logic for figuring out which one of the backplanes you want to use. Don't, try not to build it on your own because it's going to be kind of a, big engineering endeavor. So here's the idea. If the hubs are going to be hosted in Azure, yes, you have to ask the question, are you going to be using Redis cache? If you are, you might want to use the Redis backplane, which I'm going to show here in a second. If you aren't using Redis cache, you might want to go ahead and use the Service Bus backplane, which is over here. Now, if you're not running your hubs in Azure, you've just got an on-prem environment, you would probably, if you've got Redis running in your environment or you don't mind running Redis in your environment, that would probably be a good option for you to run a backplane. It's a pretty fast backplane. If you don't have or don't want to use Redis, you could also use the SQL Server backplane. I forgot to install SQL, so I can't show you that demo locally. But you could set up the code that I've got right here, point it to the right connection string, and then you would be hitting the SQL Server backplane. So the idea behind this is, you could pick and choose whatever you want to do. Realistically speaking, however, if you are working in a situation where you need mass scale out, hundreds if not thousands of simultaneous connected clients, kind of the prescription is if you can go with one of these to get started, that would be great, but it's really all about your own individual needs. If you get into this and you decide that you really are going to need the scale out, it might behoove you to build that scale out provider on your own based on the environment in which you're running. Damien might have some good tips on how you could do that later on and the guidance on it. But if you really just need to get started with backplanes, if you want to have a site out there and you know you're going to have it in multiple instances, we have 3 backplanes for you to choose from. And really the kind of the decision logic is, are you running in Azure or not? If you're not running in Azure, then SQL is going to be your best guy. One thing I do want to point out over, that's not it, it would be probably my other browser instance. Shoot, I don't have it. There is a, go here to github.com, and I'll go to the MS OpenTech repo. The Microsoft OpenTech team here in Redmond has done something pretty cool. They've actually taken Redis and they've repackaged it up so that it could run on Windows. So they've actually got I think it's written in C++, implementation of Redis that you can run directly on Windows. So you could actually pull this down, clone this repo, pull it down, compile it, and you would have a Redis executable that you could run on a Windows box right here. We obviously have Redis cache up in Azure, so if you're an Azure customer, you could use that. And then there's a bunch of other online services like Redis to Go and a few other ones that you could choose from. So there's definitely some options out there for doing stuff in Redis. But I want to point out that if you are running on-prem, you might want to think about either using the Redis provider or the SQL Server provider, since you don't want to be sending your messages all the way up to Azure if you're running your stuff from your local in-house IaaS box. So
while you're talking about that, there's also MS OpenTech has a Redis distribution on NuGet, and I heard they were working on a chocolatey install as well. Cool. So there's one on here. If you look for MS OpenTech, they have a distribution somewhere on here. So that's how I grabbed the packages recently. Okay. And for people that aren't clear on it, the difference, like SQL Server is a full-on database, right? Yep. It's a relational database. You can use it to store things. It's a lot of web applications run using SQL Server, so it's handy because it's there. Right. Redis is great because HTTP access, very light key value store, really, really, really fast. And so if you've got Redis running, it's probably going to be better for you. And then, as you mentioned again, the Azure Service Bus, great place. And there you've got all the durable, for the communication layer, you've got durable messaging.
Exactly. So you definitely have options. And then another option is you can build your own. I cannot build my own. I've tried twice. It was a fiery death. It did not go well. With that said, that's the wrong thing. I've got one other demo that I want to give you. I apparently don't have a demo slide for it. But what I want to show you is this backplane story, but this time I want to show it to you using Redis. So I'm going to go ahead and kill these servers locally real quick, and then I'm going to change the Redis version of this demo so that these are running on a different port, just in case there is something funky going on with that particular port number. So I want to go back over here to SignalR, and I'm going to open up this Redis backplane guy. I'll open up this project, and now I'm going to go to my browser window here, and you'll see that I'm logged into our new portal, and there's my scaling SignalR database. But I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the Redis demo. So I'm going to scroll down here and select, I'm going to do browse rather, and I'll go down here to my caches, and what you'll see is that this Redis cache window is going to open up over here and actually have my own cache set up called my Redis backplane. So I'm going to select that guy. I've got my code open. And I'm going to go over here and go to keys. And real quickly, I want to copy out my primary key. I'm going to allow access, and I'm going to close that guy. And what I'm going to do next is you can see that this is all the different usage and all the other details about that Redis cache if I wanted to go into detail on that. But just like before, when you saw use SQL Server, in this particular project, instead of pulling down the SQL implementation, I'm pulling down the Redis backplane implementation. And this time, when you look at the dependency resolver, I don't have use SQL Server, but I have use Redis here instead. Again, SignalR team has been extremely gracious in making it easy for us to find these things. If you were to use the Azure Service Bus guy, you would see use Azure Service Bus or something along those lines. So it's just an extension method that hangs off. Now, to configure that, the way that method looks, you can pass it the scale out configuration object instance, or there's a couple of different variables that you could pass it. I'm going to go with this route. So I'm going to pass it my server name here, and I can get all this from the portal. I'm going to pass it my port number, and that's going to be the port number of that Redis cache running. And now I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to paste in my new key, which probably somebody's already hacking me there. And I'm just going to give it an event key here that's going to define that as, that's going to be my Redis backplane demo guide. So I'm going to be running that. I'm going to do a rebuild of this. And this time I'm going to go back into my start server batch files here. And I'm going to change this over to, let's go with 8888. And this one we'll put on 9999. See if that'll work out. Just downloaded this copy of Redis, of Sublime, pardon me. So got this set up now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this server. See if that guy's going to run for me. Run this one. And now I'm going to change the port number on these guys. What did I make it? 48s and 49s. See if that's going to connect. So it's connected. And this time I want to do the 9s. And if this doesn't work, then it's this side of the screen.
Yeah,
is the problem.
the left side.
The left side of the screen.
Problematic.
So now that's connected. So now note from my code earlier, I've got the setup scale out guy turned off. Okay, so I've got one instance running there, one instance running there. So I'm going to send messages from the 9999 side. He's getting them. This guy is not getting them. So
Demo fail.
Demo fail. Oh no, but you told us SignalR was magic and it would just always work, and now it's not working.
What's going
now
on?
It's this side, it's not working, of course. So
there it is.
So there's the 8s and the 9. The 9s aren't sending to the 8s and the 8s aren't sending
Those
to the
two
9s.
browser windows are not communicating.
They're not communicating.
And I think you commented something out that may have broken your code.
That's exactly right. But I meant to do that. That was not a demo fail. That was very deliberate. Because what I want to do is show you that that will not work right now because I don't have my scale out turned on.
Right.
So I want to go back over here, and now I'm going to recompile this code since I've got the scale out turned on. And obviously this demo is a little bit interesting on this particular machine. We're having some interesting non-performance things going on today. So I'll try this one last time. I'll run this guy. Then I'll run this guy. I'm going to go over here and refresh this one. And I'm going to refresh this one. Now these two should be able to communicate with one another now because we've dropped in a Redis backplane behind the two instances, or instances of IIS Express.
Okay, so you've got two Redis servers running locally, communicating with a Redis backplane running in Azure.
No, I've got a Redis. I've got the Redis backplane running in this application, the Redis server running in Azure, and I'm sending the messages up there. And apparently I didn't dial it in right because the messages aren't going back and forth. So this is a demo fail. So I apologize. Sorry about that. But I've got videos of this demo working. Maybe when Damien comes over, he can look at the script and figure out what I'm doing wrong. But indeed, what will happen here is if you dial in the backplane, the messages will actually get sent back to that backplane, and everything will just magically work as it did not do in this particular demo. Mm-hmm. So my apologies for that.
I'm curious if you want to take a second, if you want to look in the portal, if you still got that open.
Yeah.
You could. Can you see access and see if they're hitting it?
See, doesn't look like it. Do I have a refresh button in this guy?
That's wrong. I don't want to derail you.
I'm not. It doesn't look like I'm getting anything. So that's kind of annoying. But apparently I'm doing something wrong in this one. But
all right.
The backplanes do work. I do have some TechEd demos of it working. Damien has some TechEd demos of it working. But the idea behind it is what's going to happen is once you put that backplane behind those two instances, it's going to be sending the messages up to that backplane, then down back to those instances, then down back to the client. So that'll work out well.
Great.
So I'm actually kind of curious if I run this as admin.
While you're doing that, can we switch over to my screen real quick?
Sure.
Okay, so one that we're not talking about today is Service Bus. Right. Do you have slides on that?
No, I don't.
Okay, great. So here's an example. If you go on the ASP.NET site, asp.NET/SignalR, we've pointed out once or twice about this today, but that is a great place to learn anything you want to know about SignalR. This is a great kind of central location. So ASP.NET SignalR. And here's an example. If you look at performance and scaling, there's walkthroughs on all of these. So this explains scaling out with Service Bus. and kind of walks you through how to set that up. This is with Azure Service Bus, and then also scale out with Redis. So I'm going to copy this link, and I'll show this to Brady later, and he can read up on it and learn how to, work Redis later in the future. Right. And then one other one, this is the one that I wasn't able to find earlier. This is, if you want to grab Redis, the problem I ran into, if you just go to GitHub and grab the MS OpenTech thing, is you actually have to build it, and the build didn't work smoothly for me off the bat, and you got to install SDKs and stuff sometimes. So if you just run this NuGet thing, you can grab Redis-64, and that'll get you the 64-bit version of Redis, and it includes a daemon that'll restart the service if it stops and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So
that's the deal.
Great.
But that's our scale out demo. I apologize for that Redis demo not working. I actually just tested that yesterday, and it's perfect.
Actually, you've had two demos that had weird things happen. Yeah. Both of these yesterday you ran through, and they were like boom, 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 and I'm like, Brady, you're the god of demos, and then I jinxed you.
As long as the Connect demo worked, I'm cool.
That's
and
the multi-chat was fun.
And the multi-chat was fun. That
awesome.
was definitely a good time.
Are we ready for a break?
I think we are ready for a break.
We're going to take a 10-minute break, and I'm going to magically turn Brady into Damien, and Damien is going to do some QA stuff. Please get your questions in on the chat, and we'll learn all kinds of stuff from Damien in just 10 minutes.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys. It's been fun.